Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Matt Weber. Powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver, along with Matt Weber of Roar Internet Marketing. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. We had a couple cool days here in Central Florida.
Oh, it was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, we were able to take our SPF down from 70 to 60 on our sunscreen there. It was nice, but I'm back up to 70 again.
Yeah. Guys, today I wanted to share something with you. I've been doing about a 6-week test now with some FAQ pages. And I found that, and this is very simple for you to do, and I hope you content writers out there are listening, but this may be helpful. I have found that if you embellish the question, so like let's say here's just a bad example, but how high is Mount Everest? Well, when you answer the question, you say, well, Mount Everest is blah, 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 Or anytime you ask or have the question, embellish that question with the answer.
Include the question in the answer?
Right.
Include the words that are in the question in the answer?
Correct. And I have seen a big bump with that, and just wanted to share that.
And the bump that you're seeing is you're seeing that show up more on position 0 in the knowledge panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think it's just maybe kind of added.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks kind of throw away their FAQs, meaning they don't spend a lot of time on them. And, we always look at FAQs as SAQs, should ask questions. They're kind of selling opportunities. But now I think we have to look at them in the way that you're suggesting, which is they might be organic ranking vehicles in the knowledge graph if we construct them correctly.
Exactly. And, with the recent reviews, snippets leaving are gone for service-oriented businesses, you got to find other avenues in schema to, like your thumbnails and all the other stuff that you can mark up to get to show up in the results.
To get more real estate on the SERP.
Correct, yeah.
Because a lot of folks' real estate went away with this last update.
Yeah, and you get there's huge studies done that any variation of a search result, you're going to get a better click-through rate. So
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get on to the show. Our guest today, we are going to be talking with Keith Goode. He is the SEO strategist at IBM. Are you the head of SEO strategy, Keith?
I am not. No, I am one of a quite large a large team of really awesome people, and our boss is Ellen Mamadov.
Oh, okay.
And she's great.
Nice.
Is she listening to the show?
She doesn't know.
I would say that even if she wasn't, but I don't believe she is listening to the show.
Well, welcome to the show. This
Thank
is
you.
your third or fourth time, right?
I believe it's my third time. Yeah.
Third time, yes.
I think Keith is one of the most prolific trainers and speakers that we get to have on the show. He is everywhere.
Yeah, I met him actually. We've known each other for a while, but first time face-to-face was in PubCon in Vegas, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then we met again in Florida. And
yep.
Yeah.
In Miami.
So
it's
it's a great industry to get out and about and meet some really awesome people.
Yeah. So, Keith, what did you want to share with our guest today?
Winning lottery numbers. So, kidding.
Well, I've got a good place for you to start, if you don't mind, Keith. You have a very popular framework that simplifies SEO. And we have a lot of people that sample the show to kind of get their feet wet in SEO on that. And that would be great and I know you don't have the visuals that you usually use, but maybe if you could take just a couple seconds and walk through that framework that you have for understanding SEO.
Yeah, and it's not just a framework for understanding SEO, but it's also a framework for actually building out how you strategize toward a good SEO solution for your company. And if you really want to check it out, I've probably promoted it at length on my website, keithgoode.com. But the idea behind it is that, well, it goes by a couple of names. One that I initially used was the URA SEO, framework, which is usability, relevance, and authority. At IBM, we call it the 3 C's of SEO, which is crawlability, content, and credibility. With the foundation of that pyramid, it's basically in the shape of a pyramid, but the foundational tier is the crawlability aspect, which means that your site is technically sound, you have optimized your page speeds, your server load times, you've optimized the way that you've coded the pages, so that it doesn't take 15 to 20 seconds to load a page, and then you've basically prepared yourself for whatever technical advent may happen. Because I like to think about the future a lot, and I think about when the internet really hit the consumer market back in mid-90s, so 1994 or so. This was like nothing we'd ever seen before, and I wonder how many businesses are ready for the next thing, the next big thing that comes along, and we don't know what it is yet. But if you're not ready for it, you're gonna fall behind very quickly. So one of the things you have to have is a very good, solid technical foundation. On that bottom tier is built a solid user experience and relevant content. So your relevancy is related to how well you've thought about your users, how you've thought about what they need and what they want, and how you've written about whatever it is you offer as a company in relation to that. So it really goes with the user first, but then it translates into good quality content, and whether that's written or whether that's video or podcast recordings is really dependent upon the user themselves. And then finally, sort of the apex of the pyramid is the credibility or the authority side of SEO, which I consider this tier to be sort of the least controlled aspect of SEO. In other words, this is the earned aspect of the pyramid. This is your external links. This is your social metrics. These are the social shares. This is how people outside of your site are talking about your content and about your company. And of course, obviously there are people out there that spend a lot of time building external links and sometimes unfortunately buying external links. And sure, you can sort of fake your way through authority and credibility. This is not something that we focus on at IBM. We focus on building the technology that people need and then building the site in a way that addresses that need. Mm-hmm. And depending on them to sort of promote our content and our services via links and social shares. So that's the framework that we work within, and that's how we really focus our efforts.
I thought it was a great framework because it allowed me to look at SEOs. Because, Robert, you hit all 3 C's, right? I mean, you're competent in all 3 of those. But as I think about people that I know, they're really strong in the crawlability, a lot of good technical SEOs out there. I meet other people who are really good on the content side. They're good writers. And then I meet other people who have got that kind of credibility, link building, and then off-page expertise of SEO. And so with Keith's platform, if I'm a business owner, I'm kind of listening to that and going, okay, who do I need on my team? It would be ideal if I could get a Robert. But if I can't get a Robert, I got to get a credibility person, I got to get a crawlability person, and I got to get a content person that kind of visualize it. Do you kind of agree with that as you can look at the platform in terms of people, not only strategies?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without people,
But you can you can see those strengths in different people, right? In different SEOs, they kind of they seem to everybody gravitates toward one of those 3 areas.
Yeah, there's definitely a centered strength. There's not unless someone that's been in the business for a long time and kind of go as the service is needed, they kind of force themselves to learn it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's how I started. I mean,
I think the toughest of those C's, Keith, is content. Yeah. And for me, it's tough that as I watch people, because I think we still have people who want to sell and not service. Mm-hmm. And so therefore they're not tuned in to the users that you're speaking of. Keith, what's a good piece of advice to get business owners aligned with what users want rather than that instinctive impulse they have to tell how great their business is?
Well, we are quite the arrogant species. I think that I've always been told the advice that you should always learn someone's name and how to pronounce it correctly, because the number one most favorite word in anyone's vocabulary is their own name. And so if you go up to someone, someone and you call them a slightly off version of their name, they're going to be more offended than if you call them by the right name. So, it's the same way with the way people run businesses. And to your point, as it relates to the credibility, if I was going to be hiring a team, I would focus first on the technical aspect of it, and then I would turn the content over to the SMEs, the subject matter experts within the company, and sort of teach them how to write in a way that appeals to the way users are searching for their content. So, to that end, when it comes to content and how you get people to chase the user rather than the algorithms, that's a tough one, because I will admit, as an SEO who's, I've been doing SEO for the better part of 2 decades at this point, and I remember distinctly giving the advice to people that they needed to produce 3 to 4 pieces of content per week, period. Doesn't matter no matter what you want to do. And I've also given the advice that you need to include as many iterations of a type of a topic keyword as you possibly can into the content itself. I've given that advice, and I think a lot of SEOs who have been in the industry for a while have given that advice, and we're still reaping the whirlwind, so to speak, when it comes to that advice. You've still got people who are obsessed with pushing out as much content all the time as they possibly can, when in fact that may not necessarily be that may not be necessary for the users themselves. And you've still got people who are writing for the search engines and not for the users, and that's really something you have to step away from. Anytime I see a question pop across Quora where someone's like, how many LSI keywords should I use for my my content? I think you're chasing the wrong thing. Chase the user, not the algorithm. Always.
That's exactly. I was going to say that before you said that, but I was going to say, the minute you stop chasing the search engines and you write quality content towards what your customers or clients are looking for, that's when Google goes, oh, hey, we need to rank you.
You're bringing value.
Exactly.
Right. You're ranking because you're bringing value. That's a really tough turn for SEOs and businesses to take.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with their most recent acronym that Google has come out with, and they are joining the league of companies that love acronyms like IBM, by creating the EAT acronym, the expertise, authority, and the trustworthiness. And I think they feel compelled to do this because so many people are not chasing the user; they're chasing the algorithm. And so, really, all aspects of the EAT acronym are earned. They are earned because you've done what you're supposed to do for the user. You earn expertise by having expertise, for one. This is why I very much would prefer my SMEs to write content than my content writers in many cases, or at least have the SMEs, and I keep using that term, but the subject matter experts be interviewed by the content writers. There's nothing worse than having a content writer just look up stuff on Wikipedia, find a way to rewrite it, and put it into your copy. There's nothing more boring than that. But if you've got someone who is at least a source of information for a piece of content, who is passionate about that particular topic and knows that technology well, it's a much more interesting read. And the types of people that you're going to be trying to reach are equally passionate, or at least interested in knowing what this technology can do for them. And then the authority and the trustworthiness, well, again, this is earned. This is all about how well have you displayed your expertise. How often can people reliably come to your website and get the answers or the products or the services that they need? And if you're just a day trader type of SEO where you're just interested in getting that visit and you're only worried about CPMs, or maybe you're only interested in getting the sell, and you're okay with shutting down business afterwards if you get the sell, you probably shouldn't be in business, for one. But secondly, you're probably not going to do as well with the EAT algorithm. I hate to use the word algorithm, the EAT acronym, as other people are.
So business owners listening to the show, they've got to realize that they are the subject matter experts that Keith talks about.
Here's the thing. You have subject matter experts, but they may not be writers. So, and it's different for every space. If you're a lawyer, I mean, you've got to come across authoritative and not just blurt out a bunch of information.
Yeah.
Because people, when they come for your professional services, they want to know that you know what you're talking about.
Right. So in that case,
versus a plumber,
they they have to get a writer to translate their expertise into digestible form.
Right, and that has to be taught in every space.
Yeah. Yeah. Keith, let's talk a little about planning content. What's a tip for developing a content plan for someone listening to the show, and how far out do you do a content plan?
I would say, content planning really, the best thing you can do with content planning is try not to dive in head first, right? Don't there was the old adage, writers write always. I think that was from Throw Mama from the Train, I believe. I think that was a line from that movie. But writers write always. The thing about content planning, on the other hand, is you really have to take apart your topics, and you have to figure out, okay, how do I need to structure this in a way that mimics or at least closely aligns to the buyer's journey? Because we know as SEOs that the long tail of search graph that we've seen for decades now can, in many ways, if you sort of change that x-axis to specificity rather than length of query, we know that closely aligns to the buyer's journey. The head terms tend to be someone who's just sort of initially researching the topic. The body terms are maybe people who are looking for comparisons and reviews, and then finally you get down into the try-buy aspect with the long tail, and we find that generally speaking, someone has to perform about 12 searches in the buyer's journey before they ever start typing in brand names, before they ever get to the point where they're like, okay, well, I feel fairly confident that IBM Watson has what I'm looking for, so I'm just going to type in IBM Watson for customer service or something along those lines before they ever, that's probably 12 searches into their particular buyer's journey. So as you're thinking about your topics, think about it in relation to your keywords and what sort of keywords someone would use at the initial discovery phase of their search, and what would somebody use in the body for like body keywords as it relates to the learn or the late learn phase of their journey. And then finally, how should we write up our product pages where someone would be at the very tail end of their journey, and they're probably going to be looking for brand terms. And if you can do that, you can figure out what your IA or the information architecture of your site should look like. Your site structure should mimic how people are going to be navigating through the journey. All the pages, of course, being accessible at whatever level, so they can be accessible by these search engines. But really, that's how you really think about a content plan or a content strategy as it relates to your again, it's user focused. It's 100% user focused. Don't obsess over keywords, obsess over topics and subtopics, and then build your content accordingly.
But how about for updating content? So that's a great description for somebody building a website. Awesome.
Yep.
But now there's somebody listening to the show and they've got their website in place, and they're saying, you know what, we've got to write about, or we want to write about particular topics that we've researched. How can we plan those out so that we have all the resources marching at the same pace at the right time? Is there a tool that they can use to create a content plan? Is there a frequency by which they should think about updating their content or providing content?
3 to 4 times per week. I'm joking.
Boom! When people listen to the show.
Yeah, someone just turned off the show and they started to. Okay, 3 to 4 times per week. That's what Keith said. I think it really does depend, and I hate to say that. This is sort of like the catch-all term that or phrase that SEOs can use, where it depends. Because you might be in an industry where things are changing rapidly and there's a lot of news related. And so, of course, your subject matter experts would be on the blogs and the news sources, like SEO, for example. If I was building an SEO site right now, I would want to be probably producing a couple of pieces of content today alone just about the latest the core algorithm update, and the way that Google is talking about it, and maybe some of the early signals that are coming in from something like Webmaster World, where people are talking about how they've been hit or how they feel like they've been affected, any sort of signals that we're seeing across the web. That's, that would be something that I would have, and it would be a reactionary type of post to elements that are happening beyond my business's control. And so, again, it falls on the SMEs to sort of be up to speed about what's going on, and then having them either write it or work with a content writer to write blog posts as a reaction to what's happening within the industry, but external to their business. In addition to that, you should be thinking about ways that, you use the example of lawyers, for example. I worked with a pretty solid immigration lawyer there in Miami, in Florida, for a while. Did some consulting work with him, and he was very, very passionate about what he was doing. And I always encouraged him to make sure you're looking at the news and seeing how your potential clients are going to be affected by anything coming out from a government agency like ICE, or coming out from the president's press corps. Anything coming from that, you want to be able to react to and respond to and say, hey, I can help with that. I think every industry has a great deal of news happening in it. I don't know, maybe not mortuaries, but people die, so maybe they can just have more posts about the people who've died. I'm not really sure, but that's getting too morbid. My point is that certainly there's reactionary, but then there's also things that are related to just common details about the product or service that you're buying that you may not know about, and you want to expand upon that. I think I don't want to get into too many specifics because, again, it does depend on the industry, but I really think it's all about the user and responding to whatever their needs might be in that particular industry.
Keith, paint a picture for me. You're on the enterprise level, and there's not too many. I mean, there's a lot, but I mean, a lot of SEOs haven't had the opportunity to be in an enterprise. So I'd like, if you could, to explain, because let's say IBM is massive. So I can't imagine that you handle everything, correct? I mean, is it broken down into bite-sized chunks, so to speak, for you? Could you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It is a massive company, and I've mostly worked with large enterprises throughout my career, including AMD and Dell, in addition to IBM. I think we have around 370,000 employees at this point. Yeah. That's a lot of potential for one person to break everything. And so, obviously there are some steps that we have to take from a core, what we call CHQ team, to set standards across the site. And we sort of say, this is how you should write your titles. This is how you should construct your URLs. And then there are other things that are related to, again, the enablement that I talked about, where we're talking to people and we are building an SEO class specifically for their discipline. I've often talked about holding like SEO brown bags at smaller companies, especially, and part of me regrets that, to be frank, because one of the things that we have to avoid doing as SEOs, as we are sort of enabling our minions, and I've used the metaphor in the past of sort of building an army of SEO-enabled folks who do their jobs very well in a way that is beneficial for SEO. Mm-hmm. You cannot try to build an army of SEOs in your company. You have to create an army of SEO-enabled writers, SEO-enabled developers, SEO-enabled public relations personnel. Let them do their job in a way that is that they can enjoy, but also can do in a way that is not going to damage and may even help SEO. So this is really the day-to-day at IBM. First of all, is a lot of meetings. We do love our meetings. Yeah. I'm in many ways jealous of the individual agency person who's able to sort of come in and work 8 hours, and at least 6 of those are going to be tactical SEO, where they're optimizing titles and optimizing meta descriptions and optimizing content, because I might spend 2 to 4 hours per day in meetings where I don't get a lot of SEO done.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal at IBM is not necessarily to do that, though. In fact, our team is moving away from tactical SEO as much as we can, and to the point where we're enabling people at the copywriter level, at the development level, to do their jobs right. And to sort of encourage folks to sort of keep SEO top of mind when they start a project or when they have an idea. So if some developer discovers React.js or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
we want them to go, this is really awesome. We really want to use this. Let's talk to the SEO guys and figure out how we can do this in a way that isn't going to hurt SEO.
Nice.
So this is really the focus at our level. We stop being practical or practicing SEOs and we become SEO consultants. And we start teaching people how to do SEO in their own sort of day-to-day lives without actually being SEOs.
That's really interesting. SEO having such a big benefit to the normal business. SEO ranking equals impressions, which equals clicks, which equals dollars. So let everybody in the company have an awareness of SEO rather than try to confine the expertise to one person.
It's a really good, environment that way, because I have... I've come from a corporate environment or enterprise environment with Florida Hospital and stuff, but the developers don't understand SEO, and then getting them to work together is somewhat difficult
because they probably live in silos,
correct?
Right, which like they do in a lot of companies. So Keith's embracing here. Let's kind of break down the silos and get developers to have an SEO awareness, get even project managers to have an SEO awareness, get writers to have an SEO awareness, designers to have an SEO awareness as well. Because if it all falls on the shoulders of one person, it's less likely to be successful.
Right.
Yep. You have to have 1,000 points of securing your strategy, or it'll fail, And in the same way, we encourage cross-channel collaboration as much as we possibly can, because we understand that having a one-legged stool is not a basis for stability either.
Yeah.
We can't have all of the eggs in the SEO basket. We have to have them evenly distributed across paid channels, whether it's PPC or whether it's displayed or whether it's video, and also into sort of our more traditional channels where that sometimes still works quite well. And we don't want to take away from that, because having as many channels supporting your revenue streams is vital to staying in business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe digital marketing now is becoming so important to businesses that they can at least entertain the notion of a holistic approach to digital marketing rather than a compartmentalized, siloed approach to digital marketing. I got a guy that does this, and I got another guy that does this, and I got another guy that does this.
Yeah.
Right, and they never talk to each other.
Yeah.
So, you obviously at some point, is it from the beginning, or is it something you guys meet on a regular basis to kind of educate each other, or?
Oh, we're in constant communication as a team.
Mm-hmm.
We use Slack, and we're very much on top of everything happening in the news related to SEO. We're talking about it. We're talking about any additional problems that are coming up, and we don't necessarily have to meet on a regular basis in order to get that sort of camaraderie, I guess you could call it. We are definitely a very communicative team. It's really one of the strongest teams I've ever been on. And I give all the credit to my boss for putting together such great team members. You've obviously heard of Patrick Stocks, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but there's other team members like Frank Donatone. I think he's got 2 books to his name. Jesse McDonald, who recently joined the team, he's an industry writer and speaker. And I don't want to keep naming off other names. I know Tanu Javeri is a burgeoning writer and speaker in the industry now.
Yeah.
And there's so many more that I haven't even mentioned at this point that are out there. They know their stuff. They know it well. And really, honestly, some of the nicest people you'll ever meet too.
Oh yeah.
So it's a real pleasure to work with my team.
Nice. All right. Well, we got to take a break real quick.
We're ready.
Before we leave, before we take the break, I want to let you know we're going to do what is called, when we get back, we're going to be doing who influences the influencer. So, Keith,
All right.
we want to know who influences you. All right.
I'll think hard.
All right. Right. We'll be right back.
Today's episode of Search Talk Live is sponsored by...
Hey, Robert, you're here early for the show.
Yeah, I got a ton of SEO work done this morning, and I got it done way ahead of schedule. Couldn't have done it without Ahrefs.
Yeah, so much easier than using multiple programs and having data in a bunch of different places.
Plus, being able to see what is holding a page back from ranking in Ahrefs is so much faster than picking through each part myself.
Oh, yeah, I agree. We use Ahrefs because it's so easy to teach people at our agency how to use it. Their YouTube tutorials couldn't be better. It's one thing to have a tool. It's another thing to know your team is using it to its full capacity. I don't think there's an easier, more complete tool than Ahrefs. Hey, Robert, why don't you hit them up to be a sponsor of the show?
I am way ahead of you.
Ahrefs, the official SEO tool of Search Talk Live. Try their new 7-day trial for only $7. Go to Ahrefs.com. That's Ahrefs.com.
Your website analytics data probably feels like this. But it could feel like this. Making sense of all the website data available to you hasn't been easy. Until now. Smiolytics transforms your website analytics data into easy-to-understand, memorable photographs. You pick your own photo theme. Smiolytics. S-M-Y-L-E lytics. Like analytics. Only happier. And it's free at smiolytics.com. Want to know how your website is doing? Get the big picture with pictures. It's the easiest and most enjoyable way to understand your website data. No charts, no graphs, no cost. Sign up today. Smiolytics. S-M-Y-L-E lytics. Like analytics. Only happier at smiolytics.com.
Learning a lot from Search Talk Live, but don't know what specific SEO actions you should be taking on your website? Or maybe you've tried to implement SEO on your website, but haven't gotten the results you were aiming for. We've all been there. That's why we here at Pixel Cut Labs created the SEO Project Planner. It's a one-time project where our SEO team runs a full site crawl, overlays data from leading SEO tools, and manually audits every page on your website. We'll use our findings to craft a strategic plan that covers everything from your link building strategy to page-level technical SEO and content recommendations. The project planner is perfect for businesses that are serious about SEO and want to hit a home run by leveraging our proven SEO strategy. To learn more and to see pricing for your project, visit pixelcutlabs.com/STL or text STL to 31996. Pixel Cut Labs. Welcome to page 1.
Get your questions in on Twitter. Type hashtag SearchTalkLive and your question. Now back to the show.
Yes, guys, don't forget to visit our official sponsor, Ahrefs. Show your support of the show by, trying the 7-day trial for $7. You can't beat that. And then also check out Pixel Cut Labs. I haven't got a chance to try them yet, but I'm going to. All right, so if you have questions for Keith, you can go to Search Talk, hashtag Search Talk Live on Twitter. I'm having trouble talking today. So, Keith, who influences you?
Who influences me? Yeah. Oh man, I've been thinking about that since you asked the question leading up to the show, and I was like, all right, who do I read the most consistently across the web?
You don't have to say me.
What's that?
So you don't have to say me. I'm just kidding.
This Robert O'Haver guy, he's got his game down. And this is not even self-promotional here, but I follow, I do follow what Patrick Stock says, but that I have the benefit of having him on Slack at work.
Nice.
One of the most technically, how can I say this? He's the savant of technical SEO. Probably followed shortly by Jenny Hallis over in the Raleigh area. Super smart. Bill Hartzer stays on top of a lot of stuff. Very sharp guy. There's just so many to name. It just really depends on which part of the industry. Because as we are in the industry for a while, we have our niches or our niches that we sort of start filling. And I have my technical SEO, and then I have my content-driven SEO folks that I follow as well. And just one of the benefits of being an SEO is that you're most of us are friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
And we get to, I guess, get spoiled by just going through our Facebook feed and seeing what all of these geniuses in their particular niches are saying. But yeah, those are, maybe three of the top folks that I follow in the industry, and not even including some of my international folks like Dixon Jones, who's got some exciting stuff in the works right now.
Yeah.
Definitely going to keep an eye on him.
Yeah, he retired last year, but I think I definitely keep an eye on him. He tweets some good stuff.
Believe it or not, he's got some fun stuff coming. I think he's going to announce at PubCon, so we'll see.
Oh, nice.
That's a tease right there.
So name those three people again for our listeners.
Patrick Stocks, Jenny Hallis, and Bill Hartzer.
All right. Yeah, Patrick is very humble. He's such a nice guy. He's really super nice. I met him at PubCon too, and I should have him on the show. I've asked him before. I don't know what happened, but...
Yeah, you let him start, and your brain will explode with all of these new facts. Essentially, I have to take hurried notes while he's talking sometimes, just to sort of keep up with him.
Let's book him.
Yeah.
I think you should.
Keith, speaking of your own expertise, you write quite a bit about a concept called data democratization.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
What is
You
that?
did it. Congratulations.
Drop the mic.
The show's over, folks. He said the word. Data democratization. And I didn't even realize that one of my literary friends, when I showed them the title to my presentation at Advanced Search Summit this past week, which was something along the lines of democratization and decisions through data. And they were like, "Oh, nice alliteration," and I didn't even notice that was there, but it was there, alliteration. Data democratization. It's a fantastic concept, and it goes along the lines of essentially democratizing SEO. But the idea behind it is that in your organization, you want to have as many people as possible to have access to as much data as possible. And this is probably going to obviously have limits. Your janitor doesn't need to know, what your PPC costs were, most likely. But the idea behind it is that your paid folks should have access to the organic data, and your organic folks should have access to your display data, and everyone should have access to your verbatims and your NPS scores. And in that way, we can all find a way to sort of better each other. So, we've heard for the, I don't know, well over a decade, the 1 + 1 = 3 synergy between paid and organic. And I feel like it's 1 + 1 = probably 5 or 6 or 7 in many cases, just depending on how well you execute. As an SEO, I would love to see the quality scores of my PPC efforts. I would love to see that, because what I can do with that is I can figure out what pages have the lowest quality score according to Google, and then I can look at those pages and find a way to make them better for the user. I can make the experience better for the user. And maybe I can help the paid team sort of figure out, okay, are you really focusing on this keyword for this ad? It's not appropriate, or it doesn't work, or it's not relevant to the content that you've got on the page. Let's figure out a way that we can make the content experience better for the user. Let's drive up those quality scores and drive down those overall costs per click. So That's really sort of the idea behind decisions through data and democratization of data, is that the more data you put into the hands of your minions, of your workers, the better decisions that can be made. And this is really another really good opportunity for you to instill in people critical thinking skills, where we can sort of show people, okay, well, if we see this sort of response in analytics, or we see a drop in traffic or in analytics, how can we pick apart that drop? How can we take a look at that data and figure out what the root cause of that drop might be? And it may be something as simple and non-threatening as seasonality, for example. So this that would probably be the first thing. In fact, I would encourage folks to look at when they see a drop in their traffic. Well, is it seasonal? Did the same thing happen, last week, last month, last year? And if so, well, don't worry about it. That's how it happens. But if it is sort of not consistent with other periods of time, then let's get to the root cause. So, democratization of data really does involve getting everyone involved, but with sort of solutioning out fixes for whatever ails you, so to speak. But it's also sort of imbuing in your organization critical thinking skills, which are quite important. If you get a chance, you should go out to bit.ly/SEO for Minions. That's my deck from Advanced Search Summit, and I have a little matrix in there of who are the most beneficial minions in Hollywood history as it relates to villains. And then you've got your in the lowest quadrant, you've got the stormtroopers who pretty much have to be managed at all levels and still can't hit their targets. But in the best quadrant of that matrix are Thanos's Black Order, his war masters, who, hey, guess what? Thanos was successful. Sorry, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the movie from 3 years ago, but or 2 years ago. But there's a reason he was successful, is because he surrounded himself with enabled minions who were able to critically think and get the job done. So
Keith,
this is where the decisions through data comes from.
How do you share that data? Because PPC people have a certain data that they gravitate to and surround themselves in, and it doesn't look like the data that organic people do. How can we create an environment where everybody has equal access to meaningful data? Is there a dashboard that you use, or?
Yeah. So you can certainly pull everything into a compiled data set from many different sources. At IBM we built something called Pearl that's sort of, it brings in everything. It brings in our NPS, it brings in our revenue reports, it brings in PPC, it brings in organic. So you can get into a single view from there. You may have to have something built in many cases, and you might have to use something like Tableau to sort of pull it all into a single view. But certainly, having that data centralized and available is really important. But yeah, definitely, you can use hire yourself someone who's good at Tableau, and build a center of excellence for your data.
Data Studio.
Yeah, I think Google Data Studio has really evolved, but it may not answer all of Keith's questions. But I'm with you. I think, one of the things, the takeaways for a business owner listening to the show is I have to make an investment into a dashboard. Now, what that is and what it displays, that's worthy of some conversation. But if you're not doing it now, in 2020, I think you got to commit to having some kind of a dashboard that gives you information quickly, readily, because if you're waiting to get your 60-day report from your web developer about what happened, then you're 60 days behind by the time you react to it. There's too much data out there. It's too valuable to just let it sit on somebody's desk.
I don't want to go. Keith, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too deep, but I did want to ask you, what is now I know you work in a tech industry, but communicating those data points to upper management, is that an issue? I mean,
it can be if your upper management hasn't really bought into this whole search thing, right? They're looking at multiple streams of revenue. They're trying to optimize for that, and really the way that you can get on their side, in other words, the way you can speak their language, just talk about revenue. How would your efforts benefit revenue? And don't talk to an executive, by the way, about saving money. I said this at the conference last week, but really, you guys know how executives save money?
How?
Oh, it's called layoffs. So this is how an executive of any company is really going to figure out a way to save money. He's going to look at his cost overhead, and one of the most expensive things you can have as cost overhead are employees, especially full-time employees, where you think about the salary and then add 30% for benefits. So a lot of people think, well, I just earn, I don't know, $70K. Well, no, you earn $70K plus 30%. And so those are all expenses that an executive, if given the go-ahead from his finance team, would be very happy to get rid of.
Right.
Thus the evolution of the gig economy, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how we got here, right?
Yeah.
Because enough people got laid off, and they're like, well, let me figure out a way I can make money without having to be beholding to someone. But so talk about new sources of revenue. Talk about ways they can recover lost revenue when you're talking to them, and you have to have your ducks in a row to do that. You have to have an idea of what the value of what you do as an SEO is before you can go to an executive and offer them this sort of pitch. So getting them on board with your data is the first and foremost thing, and getting them to understand the value of what you do is also important. Once you get that, that's really the linchpin there, because that's going to tie it all together. You're going to get all sorts of priority. You're going to get your budgeting. You're going to get your resources if you're able to sell it to the executive level at that point. As SEO or any sort of digital marketing becomes a priority for the CEO or the CMO of a company, it becomes a priority for the entire team.
So you wouldn't dabble in the details? You know what I'm saying? It's like visual representations of data so that they understand easier, or
yeah, I don't want to say kindergarten it, but you kind of do have to kindergarten it, right?
Hand puppets.
Executives like the charts that go up and to the right, or is it up? Yeah, up and to the right. Those are their favorite kinds of charts. But what you might find though is I worked with a guy back at Dell, and John did not want you to dumb it down for him. He wanted. He told me all the time, he goes, just give me the Excel sheet. I will work with this data. Because he was very passionate about data, and he wanted to see the exact numbers. He didn't want me to sort of give him a blanket number and go, here's your plus green colored percentage point.
Right. But at the end of the day, though, SEO is just like any other marketing channel. Sure. We mystify it. But if you're dealing with a client who historically bought radio or historically bought television or newspaper, it's all going to come down to it's got to drive sales, and you have to be able to prove that SEO is going to do that. Rankings, by the way, are not something they really glom onto. It's clicks and leads. Right?
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, clicks and leads.
Yeah, if you cannot,
sales.
Yeah, if you cannot give them a ranking report that means anything to them, I wouldn't use it, right?
Yeah.
I would say that your ranking report should only edify the overall numbers of what this is going to do in terms of driving additional traffic and leads.
I have a very vivid memory here in Central Florida of competing for a piece of business, and the client showed me their report from their previous vendor. And the client said, look at all these number one things that they had me ranked for. I'm number one. And, and the list was a laundry list of about 23 things.
Not provided.
And most of them were brand-related names. Yeah. And the rest were phrases that nobody searched for.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, you're really being hoodwinked here. So we're going to have to change the conversation, or you're not going to see our value.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nuts. There's so many games that agencies play that are not all of them,
right?
You know what I'm saying? There are definitely the ones you get from like an email blast or whatever.
Yeah, and when you as an agency, when you pitch a client, I always ask to see their previous report. Sure. Always. And it's just fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It's like learning a new language each time I do it. And credits out there to all the agencies out there who are finding different ways to spin results. Yeah. It's a very creative end of the business reporting.
Yeah, but it would be nice if you had all your clients give you the previous person's reports, because that's all the bullets you need.
Yeah, and I'd say it happens like 70% of the time, because in 70% of the time they don't really understand it, so they're more than willing to hand it off to somebody who can potentially interpret it for them.
Yeah. Or they don't know what's on there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. Where are we at now?
Well, I do want to ask Keith before we go, because I know we're winding down. Because Keith, IBM obviously sells a little bit direct to consumers, and it sells direct to other businesses primarily. In your mind, does SEO differ B2B and B2C?
Oh, yes, 100%. Because the journey is much more complicated on the B2B level. So I've worked B2C before, and IBM is almost exclusively, as far as I know, B2B. And really, what you find is that the buyer's journey is shorter at the B2C level, especially for the smaller purchases. So, someone who's going to spend $500 on your product is going to take less of a journey than someone who's going to spend $100,000 or $500,000 for your product or service as a B2B business. And this is, as I mentioned, the 12 touch points leading up to an actual use of a brand name. That's quite significant. Whereas I got to be frank, I don't know the B2C number, but I just intuitively speaking, I know that it's less. It's less. So if someone's looking for a laptop, they might have to they might search 5 times before they finally settle on Dell Inspiron or something like that as their purchase option. But 100% different. It's a different type of person. It's much easier for a consumer to reach into their wallet and pull out a credit card than it is for a chief information security officer to get a purchase order for a new rack of servers or a new cloud solution for security. So it's definitely different.
Keith, we're winding down, but I got to ask you this: as immersed in SEO as you are, what is the one SEO myth that you still think is clinging to life despite all objective, factual evidence against it?
Well, I already mentioned LSI keywords. Those are always funny to me to hear when people talk about that. I also, what I also really have a real problem with is the idea of, and I've also mentioned this, is that frequency of posting content is the key to success in SEO, and that really is only true insofar as the type of content you're producing. So, query deserves freshness, or the QDF from years ago, it doesn't apply to evergreen content. There is a great need online for evergreen content, but there's also a need for fresh content, and they're handled separately from Google. So again, it's not how often you publish; it's how often you publish in relation to how often your users need additional content. So just don't obsess over this perfect ideal number. It doesn't exist. It's whatever it is for your specific users. At all time. And also, I hate the word, or I hate the acronym TF-IDF. I know it's but I feel like people who use TF-IDF all the time are people that are trying to impress you with their ability to remember a 5 character acronym.
I love that. All right, well,
yeah,
Keith, it is time for Believe It or Leave It.
And believe it or leave it, Keith, is the time,
okay,
our
perfect.
favorite part of the show, when we give you 3 statements we found on the internet, so they got to be true. And we're going to ask you to tell our listeners whether they should believe it or whether they should leave it. And I want to remind you, these were taken from actual pieces of content on the internet. Are you ready?
Joy, yes.
Okay. Number 1, you should always delete blog content that has not generated any organic traffic after 6 months. Believe it or leave it.
Leave that. Leave it.
Literally.
No validation to that at all?
I don't believe that's true at all. And what I find is, especially when it comes to the loyalty loop or dealing with customers after the sale, you might have a support article, for example, that is only searched once a year because you got one person that still has this old product that you have, but they desperately need that. And the fact, if you delete that off your site, you're limiting your ability to service that need. So 6 months, I think that's too short of a time to really. There's going to be some benefit. Now, this is assuming that you've written the content in good faith, and that you've written something that you think someone will need. If you've written something just for the sake of writing it, and it's been 6 months and you've got no traffic, maybe believe it, but you shouldn't do that anyway.
Should rewrite it and.
Yeah, and in the author's defense, he was making a somewhat interesting argument. It was about crawl budget, and he was making the case that if your website is full of pages that are bringing no value, you're just, in some cases, preventing the bot from getting consistently to the content that could be bringing value.
There's a root problem there that they're not addressing, and that's you're writing content for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yep.
All right. Question number 2. A high bounce rate of a page does not negatively impact organic ranking.
I would believe that, yes. And in fact, John Mueller has said this extensively, and I've been on sites where the bounce rate was 80% or higher, and it didn't hurt us. It's just that in many cases what you find is users are coming to a page, they're getting what they want within 30 seconds, and they're leaving.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that you haven't answered the question.
It may mean that you've answered it really well.
You did it really well, and you did it really fast. Good job.
Yeah, I think bounce rate's really one of the more misunderstood metrics and most misused metrics.
It is. Yes, it definitely is. And there might be some tweaks that could be done to that article. I mean, obviously, like Keith said, it's not bad. But, like, if you're a service-oriented business and you're answering that question, they leave, there is no conversion rates or anything, you might want to make some changes to maybe improve that.
Make sure they have the opportunity to convert on that. Make sure they have opportunity to go deeper into the site with
Absolutely. Look at your engagement rates more than your bounce rates.
Yeah.
I have to confess that this next one comes from the same author as number one.
Okay.
But number 3, never, and that's his statement, never update content on your website that is ranking number 1.
I mean, again, you're focused on the SERPs. You're not focused on the user in that case. Does it warrant an update? If it does, then do it. And I would say leave that advice in the dust. Again, it's all back to motivation. It's all about why would you update this? If it makes sense to do it, do it. I would say.
Yeah, and this was, by the way, an interesting article. I have to make sure I get it to you, Robert. But he was making the case, the author was, that we know what we know about Google, but that isn't what we don't know about Google, right? So he's saying every time you make a change, you create risk, you create opportunity for something to go bad because of the unknown, and we tend to focus on the, in quotes, known of what's happening. So but he says the risk ratio in his mind was not in your favor.
But typically, if a site is like sitting there for like 3 to 6 months, it's not going to move if you're improving it,
And he's saying, what is improving? There's more that we don't know about the algorithm that we do. And he said it simply creates risk. That was his point.
Yeah, well, that gets to my tattoo, if you guys are interested in my tattoo.
Well, we're going to ask you about your tattoo for the show. Now, do you have another tattoo that you were going to share with us?
No, it's
no.
the
Okay.
same tattoo.
All right. Okay. Didn't know how personal we were getting on the show, but it is time for the Search Talk Live tattoo, Keith, where we're going to ask you for your most succinct, most compelling piece of advice based on the show's content today, and it has to be tattooable.
Absolutely, and a short ink supply at that.
Yes.
Chase the user.
Chase the user.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is an awesome tattoo.
Yeah. I mean, it works for SEOs and for meth dealers, but it really it really does apply across the board. Chasing the user, not the algorithm. I guess if you wanted to spend a little bit more ink, you could do that. But when I hear this advice that you just gave, and it's all focused on the algorithm, I feel bad because I'm very user oriented, and I think we should all be user oriented. And when I hear people like, "Oh, well, the algorithm, we know this about it," well, stop it. Just stop it. Okay, they're going to change soon.
Or have the algorithm chase you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love the way that we're finishing the show on that note, because I know your experience is like mine, is that business owners on the non-enterprise level, they're not focused on the algorithm. They're focused on the sale.
Yeah.
They're not focused on the customer. Mm-hmm. And they don't really spend time thinking through what are the prospects' problems that they can solve. They want to sell, like they did in the 1990s and the early 2000s and the 1980s. They simply haven't adapted to trying to solve a prospect's problem.
And I think that's why I do this, because I love that challenge.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think Keith is the same way, right?
If you find satisfaction in helping people, then digital marketing is a great career for you, because really blow away all the dust. And what do you got to do? You really have to stay focused on helping people.
Right.
Yep.
And Keith does that a lot at his conferences.
Yeah, Keith, where are you going to be speaking
That's
next?
Right.
Where are you going to be speaking?
I'll be speaking
next?
at PubCon in Las Vegas. Yeah, PubCon Pro Las Vegas. I will be speaking in a couple of sessions. I'll be doing site reviews, and then I'll be talking about in-house content strategies with fellow IBMer Topher Kohan from the Weather Company.
Nice.
And then I'll be moderating 2 sessions and a track chair and a bunch of other stuff. So come on out and see me. I don't know if discount codes still apply, but if you need one, let me know.
So are you doing search awards too? US?
I am, yeah. Judge on the U.S. Search Awards. Looked at 3 categories this time, and so if you're at the U.S. Search Awards, say hello.
Yeah, they're back to back, aren't they?
Yep, simultaneous.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
Or
well,
complete. I don't know. Yeah.
I want to thank you for being on the show again, Keith. You are always welcome back here. We enjoy having you.
Thank you.
Good content.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. Have a great one, guys.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. If you want to be a guest on the show and you're interested and you have what it takes to be on the show, like Keith, the round 3 for him, you can send me an email, Robert at Search Talk Live or Matt at Search Talk Live. We'd be happy to entertain what you might have to talk about on the show. And also, if you're interested in being a sponsor of the show, hit me up at Robert at Search Talk Live as well. And you have questions you want answered on, you can email me personally. I know some SEOs are embarrassed to ask questions on social media because they want to,
be anonymous, kind of.
Yeah, they want it more anonymous. So there's not other SEOs are looking at them going, oh, you don't know that? That type of thing. So you can email me personally or Matt. We'd love to answer any questions you have, or you can do the hashtag Search Talk Live if you have no problem asking your questions live on the on Twitter. We can ask our guests the questions there.
And we've got a fairly well-known guest next week, right?
We do. I'm so glad you brought that up because I almost forgot to mention it. Next week, guys, get your questions in. Please email them to me. We have John Mueller on the show from Google. He's the webmaster trends analyst at Google, Switzerland. And he's going to be on the show answering your questions and our questions. I've got some schema stuff.
Really looking forward to that one. John Mueller next week on Search Talk Live.
Thanks a lot, everybody. See you
Take
next
care.
week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. If you have questions for Search Talk Live, or you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of the show, email Robert at searchtalklive.com. That's searchtalklive.com.